Natalie never imagined she'd end up feeling this way. Lying in bed next to her husband, Aaron, she absently scrolled through Instagram, the blue glow of the screen casting faint shadows across their dimly lit bedroom. It was past midnight, and while Aaron snored softly beside her, she felt absolutely nothing. No warmth, no connection, just a lingering sense of frustration that simmered beneath the surface, threatening to boil over. Aaron's frame had filled out over the past 3 years since their wedding, his body no longer as lean as it had been when they'd exchanged vows on a sun-drenched beach in Malibu. Back then, he had been her anchor in a world that felt chaotic and unpredictable. Choosing him had felt like the logical, mature thing to do. Unlike her ex, Alex, the free-spirited musician who played guitar on the streets of downtown LA, Aaron was solid, dependable, financially stable. Alex had been all passion and spontaneity, with a grin that could light up a room, but in the end, he had been unreliable. Aaron, by contrast, had given her the security she thought she needed after years of turbulent relationships. But now, staring blankly at the ceiling of their small Los Angeles apartment, Natalie couldn't shake the creeping regret that seemed to visit her every night. Aaron wasn't the same man he had been on their wedding day. The spark in his eyes had faded, his once fit physique had softened, and it wasn't just the extra weight, it was the way it mirrored the emotional heaviness he carried. She noticed the way he struggled to climb the stairs, how his dress shirt stretched too tightly around his midsection, and how his evenings were now spent slumped in front of the TV, barely engaging in conversation. Bit by bit, she had pulled away, first emotionally, then physically. Each time he reached for her hand or leaned in for a kiss, she found a way to dodge his touch, excusing herself with a distracted smile or a half-hearted excuse. The last time he tried to initiate anything more, she had simply turned away, muttering about exhaustion while her stomach twisted at the thought of being close to him. Deep down, she knew it wasn't just about the weight. She wanted to believe Aaron was at fault for letting himself go, for allowing the spark between them to fizzle out. But in the quiet moments, when she was honest with herself, an unsettling thought whispered in the back of her mind, maybe she had never truly wanted this life with him. And then there was Alex. She hated that she still thought about him, that her mind wandered back to the effortless way he used to make her laugh, the way he'd pull her into an unexpected embrace just because he felt like it. Alex had set the bar for passion and excitement in her life, and even though she knew she no longer loved him, that didn't stop her from measuring every relationship, including her marriage, against him. Beside her, Aaron shifted in his sleep, murmuring something incoherent before settling again. Natalie watched him, her thoughts tangled. He had been good to her, supportive, generous, always willing to put in the work. He had spent long hours building a stable future for them, but somehow, that stability had started to feel suffocating. Had she made a mistake? The resentment she felt wasn't something she could keep locked away forever. It seeped out in clipped words, in eye rolls and passive-aggressive remarks. Little things she convinced herself didn't matter, even though she knew they did. And while Aaron wasn't oblivious to her growing indifference, he had learned to ignore it. Work kept him busy, and he was too drained at the end of the day to question how they had ended up so distant. In his mind, there were always reasons: long hours, stress, rushed dinners from drive-thrus, skipped gym sessions. After all, who had time for workouts after grinding through a 10-hour shift in finance? But his quiet acceptance only made her feel more trapped. Their small apartment, once cozy, now felt like a cage. Every time she scrolled through Instagram, past images of curated perfection, polished vacations, and couples who looked effortlessly in love, the weight of her dissatisfaction pressed down on her chest. And then, one evening, it all came to a head. Aaron walked through the front door late that evening, a bag of takeout in his hand, Italian, her favorite. His face was weary, but he still managed to offer a tired smile as he stepped into the kitchen. "I figured you might not feel like cooking tonight," he said, lifting the bag slightly as if it were a peace offering. Natalie didn't bother looking up from her phone. Without missing a beat, she scoffed. "Maybe if you didn't bring home pasta every other night, you wouldn't be so out of shape." Her voice was sharp, laced with sarcasm. Her words hit their mark. Aaron hesitated for just a second before setting the bag down on the counter. "I was just trying to do something nice," he murmured, his voice low, almost uncertain. Natalie barely glanced at him. "Maybe try being nice to yourself for once," she shot back. "You can't seriously think eating this junk is doing you any favors." A heavy silence settled between them. Aaron didn't argue, he never did. Instead, he quietly grabbed a plate, served himself some of the food he'd brought, and disappeared into his office. Natalie watched him go, feeling a flicker of guilt she couldn't quite place. But instead of sitting with it, she buried herself deeper in her phone, scrolling past picture-perfect couples who looked happier, fitter, and far more glamorous than she and Aaron ever had. Even their friends had started to pick up on the strain between them, though Natalie did her best to mask it. But at a dinner party the following weekend, there was no hiding the growing distance. Dressed in a sleek, form-fitting black dress, she laughed a little too loudly at the jokes of the more confident men in the room. She leaned into conversations with them, admiring their tailored suits, flashing a charming smile. Meanwhile, Aaron lingered by the appetizers, awkwardly attempting small talk with people who barely acknowledged his presence. By the time dessert was served, he had withdrawn to a quiet corner, nursing a glass of wine in silence. Natalie, on the other hand, was completely engaged, soaking up the attention of a friend's husband, a man whose easy charisma and quick wit reminded her of Alex. The ride home was thick with tension, the kind of silence that made the air feel heavy. Aaron was the first to break it. "Natalie," he said, his voice carrying the weight of exhaustion. "What happened to us? What happened to you?" He exhaled, gripping the steering wheel a little tighter. "I know I've changed. I've put on weight, work's been stressful, but I've been trying. And you don't even seem to see that." Natalie didn't hesitate. Her response was swift and cold. "Trying?" she scoffed. "That's the problem, Aaron. You're not trying hard enough. I'm sick of pretending things are fine when they're not. You've let yourself go. You don't even seem to care about what we used to have." Aaron's knuckles turned white as he clenched the wheel. He wanted to fire back, to defend himself, to make her see his side of things. But the words never came. He swallowed them down, keeping his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Then, on a Thursday night, Aaron finally reached his breaking point. After another long, grueling day at work, he came home hoping for something, some kind of warmth, some kind of reassurance. But when he walked into the living room, all he found was Natalie curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. "Hey," he said carefully, his tone unsure. "How about we watch a movie together? It's been a while since we just spent time. Just us." Natalie didn't even glance up. "I'm tired," she muttered flatly. "I have yoga in the morning." Aaron stood there, lingering, searching for the right words. "Okay," he said after a pause. "But I miss you, Natalie. I miss being close to you. I just want to spend time together." That finally got her attention. She set her phone down and looked at him, incredulous. "Close to me," she repeated, her voice dripping with disdain. "Aaron, have you looked at yourself lately? You think I want to sit here and pretend like everything is fine? Like I'm still attracted to you?" Her words struck him like a physical blow. He took a breath, steadying himself. "Natalie, I know I've put on weight. I know I've been caught up in work. But marriage isn't just about that. It's about supporting each other through the hard times, not just the easy ones." Natalie rolled her eyes, crossing her arms. "Supporting each other? Maybe you should try supporting yourself for once. Take care of yourself, Aaron. You're asking me to be attracted to someone who doesn't even respect their own body." Aaron stared at her, the reality of it all sinking in. The distance between them wasn't just emotional anymore, it was something else entirely, something impossible to bridge. "So that's it, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. You don't respect me anymore because I've gained weight? Because I've been doing everything I can to hold things together? Natalie shrugged, unmoved. I'm saying I'm tired of pretending. You've let yourself go, and I can't even look at you without feeling embarrassed. Natalie's words hung in the air, sharp and unforgiving. Then, almost without thinking, she blurted out, God, even Alex. She caught herself, but it was too late. Aaron's face changed instantly, his jaw tightening, his expression hardening. His voice was quiet but edged with something sharp. Alex? He asked, the name like a blade between them. You're bringing him into this now? Natalie's defenses shot up. I'm just saying he took care of himself, she snapped, arms crossing over her chest. He wasn't perfect, but at least he looked like someone you could be proud of. Aaron didn't say another word. He didn't argue, didn't yell, he just turned and walked toward the bedroom, shutting the door behind him with a quiet finality. Natalie flopped back onto the couch with an annoyed sigh, muttering under her breath. But as the hours dragged on and the apartment grew quieter, a small voice in her mind whispered an uncomfortable truth: she had crossed a line she couldn't take back. That night, Aaron lay awake staring at the ceiling, her words playing on repeat in his head. He thought about everything he'd done to build a stable life for them, the long hours, the stress, the sacrifices. None of it seemed to matter to her. But instead of anger, something else settled inside him. A quiet decision. He wasn't going to beg for her love. He wasn't going to fight for a marriage she seemed intent on destroying. He was going to focus on himself. Not for her. For him. The next morning, Aaron was up earlier than usual. He dug through the garage until he found an old pair of running shoes, forgotten under a thick layer of dust. Lacing them up, he stepped onto the treadmill. The first few minutes were brutal. His legs felt like lead, his breathing uneven. But he pushed through. This wasn't just about working out, it was about taking control. For the first time in months, he felt like he was doing something for himself. The changes started small. He replaced greasy takeout with meal-prepped, home-cooked food. Swapped sodas for water. Found time to squeeze in workouts before heading to the office. Day by day, his body grew stronger, his confidence steadier. And Natalie? If she noticed, she didn't show it. Maybe she didn't care. She was too wrapped up in her yoga classes, her brunch dates, her boutique shopping sprees, all funded by Aaron's paycheck. One Saturday morning, Aaron came back from a run, his shirt drenched in sweat. Natalie was sprawled on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely glanced at him before smirking. Did you actually run on that thing, she teased, nodding toward his damp clothes, or just walk and call it cardio? Aaron didn't take the bait. He grabbed a bottle of water from the fridge and walked past her without a word. Her snide remarks didn't slow him down, they fueled him. Weeks passed, and his progress was undeniable. The weight came off, his clothes fit better, and he was standing taller, carrying himself with a confidence he hadn't felt in years. But the distance between him and Natalie? That only grew wider. She made no effort to bridge the gap. Instead, she mocked his efforts, dismissing his transformation as nothing more than a desperate attempt to win her back. One evening, they attended a fancy dinner party thrown by one of Natalie's yoga friends. Aaron had been reluctant to go, but he figured it was better than another night sitting in silence at home. It was exactly the kind of event Natalie loved, trendy hors d'oeuvres, an open bar, and a crowd that adored attention. She thrived in settings like this, soaking up compliments on her designer dress, laughing easily with strangers. Aaron, meanwhile, stuck to the sidelines, sipping his drink quietly. As the night wore on, Natalie gravitated toward one of the more charismatic men in the room, a fitness coach named Zachary. She laughed at his jokes, touched his arm a little too often, completely oblivious to Aaron standing just feet away. Then came the group photo. the host insisted, gathering everyone together. Zachary slid an arm around Natalie's shoulders, and she leaned in, laughing like she didn't have a husband in the room. Aaron watched it all unfold. On the drive home, the silence was unbearable. Finally, Aaron spoke. His voice was calm, but there was something in it, something firm. "Natalie," he said, eyes fixed on the road. "Do you even care anymore? About us? About me?" She let out an exaggerated sigh, rolling her eyes. "What's that supposed to mean?" Aaron tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "It means I'm tired of feeling like a stranger in my own marriage," he said, his voice steady. "I've been trying, Natalie. I've been working on myself, not just for me, but because I thought maybe, just maybe, it would help us," Aaron said, his voice steady despite the frustration building inside him. "But you don't even seem to notice." Natalie turned to him, her expression unreadable, cold. "You're right, Aaron," she said flatly. "I don't notice. Because it's not enough. You already let yourself go, and no amount of running on that treadmill is going to change the fact that I'm not attracted to you anymore." Aaron's fingers tightened around the steering wheel, his knuckles going white. For a moment, he just sat there, letting her words settle between them like dead weight. Then, in a quiet, measured voice, he finally responded. "I think that says more about you than it does about me." Over the next few weeks, Aaron started making moves. He scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney and began sorting through their finances. He opened a separate bank account and rerouted his paychecks, cutting off Natalie's easy access to their shared funds. One evening, while Natalie was out at a spa appointment, Aaron sat in his office, combing through their financial records. The numbers were staggering: thousands of dollars spent on designer clothes, boutique fitness retreats, luxury vacations she had taken without him. But Aaron didn't feel angry anymore. He felt focused. The final straw came when Natalie tried to book an extravagant weekend getaway with her friends. Sitting at the dining table, she breezed through the reservation process, only to be met with an error message. Card declined. Frowning, she tried again. Same result. Annoyed, she called the bank, only to be told that Aaron had closed the account. That evening, when Aaron walked through the front door, she was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed, eyes burning. "Care to explain why my credit card got declined today?" she snapped. Aaron set his briefcase down, meeting her glare with quiet confidence. "Because I closed the account." Her mouth fell open. "You what?" she practically shrieked. "Are you kidding me, Aaron? What gives you the right?" "It's my account, Natalie," he said, his voice calm but firm. "The one I've been depositing money into while you've been draining it dry." Natalie's face twisted with fury. "Oh, I see. This is about punishing me, isn't it? Because I won't sleep with you? Because I won't pretend to love you anymore?" Aaron didn't flinch. "No, Natalie," he said evenly. "This isn't about punishing you. It's about facing reality. And the reality is, we're done." Natalie froze. Her eyes darted to the stack of papers Aaron pulled from his bag and placed on the counter. Her voice wavered. "What is this?" Aaron met her gaze without hesitation. "Divorce papers," he said simply. "It's over, Natalie." Her mouth opened and closed, searching for a response, for a way to regain control of the conversation. "You can't be serious," she said, shaking her head. "You're divorcing me. For what? Because I told you the truth? Because I expected more from you?" Aaron's expression didn't change. "No, Natalie," he said quietly. "I'm divorcing you because of how you've treated me. I've spent years giving you everything, my time, my energy, my love. And all you've given me in return is ridicule and contempt. You don't respect me. You don't care about me. And honestly, I'm done pretending this marriage is something it's not." Natalie's voice rose in frustration. Oh, come on, Aaron. You're being dramatic. Every couple has rough patches. You don't just walk away. Aaron leaned forward slightly, his tone firm but composed. I didn't walk away, Natalie. I fought for this marriage. But you? He shook his head. You gave up the moment you decided humiliating me in front of your friends was more important than respecting me as your husband. You treated me like nothing more than a paycheck. So no, this isn't me giving up. This is me choosing to move on. Her face flushed red. And what now? She sneered. You're just going to walk away. Leave me with nothing. Aaron exhaled, shaking his head. No, Natalie. I've left enough for you to hire a lawyer. But everything else? That's mine. I earned it. You spent years enjoying the life I built, and now? It's time for me to enjoy it on my own. He grabbed his keys from the counter and turned toward the door. Natalie's voice cracked slightly, a note of panic slipping in. Where are you going? Aaron paused, glancing back over his shoulder. Somewhere far away, he said. I booked a solo trip. A real vacation. I need to clear my head, focus on myself, and figure out what's next. But one thing's for sure. His eyes met hers one last time. I'm not coming back here. And with that, he walked out, leaving Natalie standing in the silence, the weight of her own choices finally settling in. For the first time, Natalie felt something she never had before, powerless. The control she once held over Aaron, the security she had taken for granted, was gone. The weeks that followed were a blur. Aaron moved out, signed the final divorce papers, and set out to build a new life on his own terms. He walked away from his high-stress corporate job and launched his own fitness consulting business, blending his passion for health with his financial expertise. His social media quickly became a reflection of his transformation, pictures of him hiking through scenic trails, crossing marathon finish lines, and traveling to breathtaking destinations filled his feed. He looked different. Stronger. Happier. Free. Meanwhile, Natalie struggled to adjust. The credit cards she had once swiped without a second thought were maxed out, and without Aaron's steady income, she could no longer maintain the luxurious lifestyle she had grown so accustomed to. She was forced to sell some of her designer bags and high-end jewelry just to cover rent. The part-time job she had once treated as a hobby now became a necessity, and for the first time in years, she felt the weight of her own choices pressing down on her. The silence in her empty apartment was suffocating, a constant, inescapable reminder of everything she had lost. One afternoon, while running errands, she spotted Aaron at the local farmer's market. He stood near a stall filled with fresh produce, chatting easily with the vendor, his posture relaxed, his smile effortless. The sight of him made something in her chest tighten. He looked good, better than she had ever seen him. His athletic build, his self-assured demeanor, it was the version of Aaron she had always wanted. And yet, she had been the one to push him away. Summoning her courage, she walked over. Aaron, she said softly. He turned to face her, his expression polite but distant. Natalie. For the first time, she felt unsure of herself. You look great, she said, awkwardly shifting her weight. Thanks, he replied simply, his tone neutral. She swallowed hard. I was wondering if we could talk sometime, she ventured, her voice laced with something dangerously close to desperation. You know, just to clear the air. Aaron held her gaze for a moment before offering a small, tight smile. There's nothing to talk about, Natalie, he said, his voice calm but firm. I've moved on. You should too. And with that, he turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, fighting back the sting of tears. Months passed, and one evening, Natalie sat alone in her apartment, aimlessly scrolling through Aaron's Instagram. His life now seemed like something out of a movie, new friendships, thrilling adventures, a newfound purpose that radiated through every post. He wasn't just surviving. He was thriving. She wondered, for the first time, what might have been if she had made different choices. If she had supported him instead of tearing him down. If she had seen his worth before it was too late. Aaron had never just been a safe choice. He had been her partner, her foundation, her home. And now, he was gone. And there was no getting him back. As she closed her laptop, Natalie made a quiet promise to herself. She couldn't rewrite the past. She couldn't undo the damage she had done. But she could learn from it. For years, she had chased a picture-perfect life, believing that happiness came from status, appearance, and control. But now, she finally understood what truly mattered, something she had taken for granted all along. A real connection. Built on mutual respect, kindness, and love. She didn't know if she would ever find it again. But if she did, she knew one thing for sure. It had to start with her.